This is Horror has everything I need. It's got interviews with my favorite writers. It's got reviews that are really nuanced. It's got the podcast, which is great to listen to. It's got articles. It's got wrap ups of this week in horror. It's got people behind it and writing for it who believe in horror. It's good to hang out with This Is Horror. I'll be doing it for a while.
Hi, my name's Rob, and I'm a supporter of This Is Horror on Patreon. I'm a big fan of the podcast, as well as their chapbook series, and so I love the fact that I have a way that I can give them monthly support for all the wonderful things they do. If you've read their chapbooks or listened to the podcast or even checked out any of the wonderful articles they have on their website, I would recommend also going over to their Patreon page and contributing.
Hi, my name is David Osborne, and I support the This Is Horror podcast because they're filling a very necessary niche in the podcasting world. The hosts are funny and insightful, the questions are very well thought out, and the guests always have super good nuggets of info, being that they're typically the best that the horror genre has to offer right now. I like being able to pose questions to these authors. I like being able to give my input to the This Is Horror crew. And as long as they continue to pump out what I consider to be one of the best podcasts going right now, I will continue to be a patron of their work.
I'm David Moody, and I support This Is Horror because This Is Horror supports me. Like all the best parasites, we have a wonderfully symbiotic relationship. As a writer, This Is Horror helps me connect with the wider horror audience in the UK and beyond. And as a reader and watcher of horror, they keep me up to date with everything that's going on in the genre. Long may they continue.
Hi, my name is Richard Thomas, and I am an author, an editor, a teacher, and publisher. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, depends on where you are in the world, I guess, about This Is Horror and their Patreon account. Why I subscribe and why I'm a fan of what they're doing. I guess as far as what I love about these guys, they really know what they're doing. They ask a lot of great questions. I've done several interviews with them, and they really do their research, and they pay attention to what's going on, and especially Michael Wilson. They really ask questions that are smart, and they do the research, and it's always a pleasure to go on the air with them and do an interview. They're also publishing some really great books, really excellent stories by some very talented people. I think they're really kind of at the cutting edge of what's going on in dark fiction. Horror, and it's one of the things I talk about in my classes with my students, it has such a broad definition these days. It's not the same old classic horror that you might have grown up with. The same old monsters and tropes and plots. It's really broadened. You see a lot of really great hybrid fiction going on these days, taking the best of fantasy, science fiction, and horror, as well as Southern Gothic, transgressive, literary fiction. So there's so many cool things going on, and they really understand that, and they're open to that, and do a great job of covering it. I subscribe because I want to know when they have new work up. They're constantly interviewing people that I love to listen to. So it seems like a no-brainer to me to be a part of it. I can't believe that you don't have an extra $5 sitting around each month that you can contribute to help these guys make this happen. Don't buy the Starbucks. Put down one Starbucks and have a bunch of water or something. Although I understand coffee, so maybe put down the pint or something. Find the $5 extra if you can, and contribute and help these guys out because I think you'll find that they're doing some really great work. And you want to be a part of it. So check them out and support them when you can. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Lydia, a horror author and co-host of SplatterPictures.net Dead Air podcast. I'm also the new releases moderator on the Horror Writers Association website. I become a patron on the This Is Horror Patreon account because a lot of times horror is lumped in with science fiction and fantasy. And I like this podcast because this is horror, and that is the truth. I am a big supporter in that I share almost every episode. I enjoy every episode. And I figured that I definitely would like to see this podcast keep going. So I decided to donate the $1 a month because I can afford $1 a month. So aside from getting interested around episode 1 or 2 and then super interested around episode 9 where they interviewed Joe Hill, I've become a really big supporter of this podcast and I share almost every episode because I think it's that important and I enjoy it that much. So I'd like to see everybody support them. It's my way of saying thank you.
Hey, this is John Foster talking to you from Brooklyn, New York, and I'd like to tell you why I'm supporting This Is Horror on Patreon. We're living in a golden age of horror, and I'm damn glad to be a part of it with my novels Mr. White and Dead Men. This Is Horror is a publisher of fantastic writers like Nathan Ballingrud and Josh Malerman, just to name a few, but they're also a wonderful resource for articles, book reviews, and what I'm here to talk to you about, podcasts. This Is Horror's approach is to do up to 2 hours of conversation with some of the best writers working today, including folks like David Moody, Joe Hill, Paul Tremblay, Damien Angelica Walters, Helen Marshall, and T.E. Grau, just to name a few. They also talk to agents like Kristen Nelson or award-winning editors like Ellen Datlow. Look, This Is Horror is a tremendous resource for both readers and writers alike. I urge you to support them just the way I did. Thanks a lot. This has been John Foster in New York. Take care.
Kia ora, David Bowles here. Hey, if you're like me, you probably love the hell out of horror, don't you? And so you've probably already discovered This Is Horror, the premier website for all things related to the genre, whether it be the latest reviews, articles, great novellas, just a fantastic resource. They also have a great podcast, and if you haven't already checked it out, you really should. 3 co-hosts, what I like to call the Triumvirate of Terror, lead us through some really, really great interviews. We're talking Brother Michael, Brother Dan, and of course my fellow Texan, Brother Bob. And these 3 dudes doing a fantastic job bringing us the up-and-coming authors we want to know more about, interviewing established indie authors that produce the work that we enjoy so much, and of course, sitting down with some of the greats, some of the established authors from the Big 5. Now, these guys could really use our help. And since we can't really sacrifice human beings in the 21st century to the elder gods, we're going to have to settle for money, aren't we? If you can pitch in $1, $5, $10 every month, it'll be a lot of help. Producing a podcast is no easy task. It takes hours and a lot of resources. So if we can help out, that's great. And there are perks involved. I give money every month, and I get to ask questions of future guests well in advance of the podcast. I get the episodes before anybody else does. And every couple of months, I get a free novella as kind of a reward for being a good supporter of the cause. So to help them in their unholy alliance, why don't you go over to Patreon and give some today? You won't regret it.